You've probably noticed it, that strange, uncomfortable distance that starts to grow between you and the person you once thought you couldn't live without. Someone who was once your safe place now feels like just another presence that irritates you. And the question keeps echoing inside your head even when you try to ignore it. Why is it so common to feel distant or even annoyed with the people we love the most? Maybe you think it's just you. Maybe you believe you're broken, or that the other person has changed. But the truth is much more complex and more human than that. There's an invisible dynamic happening beneath the surface, a combination of psychological mechanisms that almost no one teaches us to recognize. We idealize, then we project, and when reality arrives, we get lost. It's like the love that felt so solid was actually made of smoke, and suddenly you're left trying to hold on to something that's already slipping away. In the beginning, everything feels magical. The archetype of perfect romantic love takes over, making us believe that the other person is the answer to all our silent questions. Carl Jung would call this projection, that phase where we see in the other everything we want to see in ourselves. We fall in love, but in truth, we fall in love with our own fantasy. We don't love the person, we love the image we created of them. But with time, that image starts to break. And there's more. Our own brain, without us noticing, begins to devalue anything that becomes too familiar. Daniel Kahneman explains this as the mere exposure heuristic. What once was novelty becomes routine. What once was fascination turns into predictability. That voice that once made your heart race now feels like background noise. That presence that once filled you now suffocates you. Not because the person changed, but because your mind changed the way it sees them. And this is where many people give up. They give up on the relationship, give up on the other person, and sometimes even give up on themselves. Without understanding that this emotional fatigue, this quiet drift, isn't the end. It's just a new beginning, an invitation to look deeper, to understand the invisible mechanisms acting inside you and between both of you. This video is a dive into those mechanisms, a journey through the deepest layers of human psychology, emotion, and behavior. Not to give you quick answers, but to give you clarity. Because before making any decision, you deserve to understand what's really happening inside you. And maybe, just maybe, realize that the problem was never love itself, but how we deal with it when it stops being new and starts becoming a mirror. The self-deception of initial love, when you fall in love with your own projection. In the beginning, everything feels light, beautiful, effortless. It's like the universe is conspiring to make you believe you found the right person. Laughter comes easily. Touch electrifies. Absence hurts like forever. But what no one tells you is that most of this enchantment isn't about the other person. It's about you. About the feelings you want to experience. About the story you created in your mind before truly knowing who the person really is. There's a silent construction happening, layer by layer, fueled by your emotional hunger, your need for belonging, your deep craving for validation. You look at the other person and, without realizing, you start projecting onto them everything you wish you could find in yourself. Strength, sensitivity, security, adventure. Every quality you value, you start to see, or rather, believe you see, in them. Neuroscience explains that during the early stages of a relationship, dopamine throws a party in your brain. Every text message, every glance, every kiss activates the same reward circuits triggered by drugs. You become addicted not to the person, but to the feeling, to the chemical effect they generate in you. And like any drug, eventually the effect fades. That's when the self-deception begins to unravel. Small things that were once invisible start to annoy you. A way of speaking, a silly habit, a distant gaze. Something you once romanticized now irritates you. What once was how authentic they are now sounds like how immature they've become. What once was how passionate they are now feels like how out of control they seem. And the curious thing is that it's not even their fault. What changed was your perception. Your lens collapsed because now the veil of projection has started to fall, and what's left is the real human being, with flaws, with limits, with contradictions. And often, you're not prepared to deal with that, because truly loving someone means letting go of the fantasy you built. The disillusionment hurts. It wounds the ego. It makes you question everything. Did I choose wrong? Is the love gone? Was this person ever who I thought they were? But maybe the most honest question is, did I ever really see who this person is? This is where many relationships end. Not because love died, but because the projection couldn't survive the shock of reality. The emotional repetition effect, why the brain disconnects from what it already has. After the phase of idealization fades, another silent enemy begins to act. It's not a fight, not a betrayal, not a big disappointment. It's something much more subtle and, at the same time, much more dangerous: excessive familiarity. That feeling that no matter how much the person is there, they no longer excite you, no longer surprise you, no longer move you from within. Daniel Kahneman calls this the familiarity heuristic, an automatic mechanism where the brain learns to conserve emotional energy when facing what's already predictable. What once made you smile now goes unnoticed. What once made you tremble inside now just feels dull. Not because the person became less interesting, but because your brain got used to them. The repeated exposure, that emotional routine where the same gestures, the same words, the same scenarios repeat day after day, anesthetizes your ability to feel. It's like listening to the same song for the 100th time. Even if it's good, it loses its impact. And there's more. Sensory and emotional saturation creates mental fatigue. Small things that used to go unnoticed start to annoy you. The way the person breathes, how they scroll through their phone, the tone of their voice. Everything becomes a trigger for irritation, and you can't even explain why. There's a cruel paradox here. During the conquest phase, your brain is wired to seek rewards, to chase novelty, to feel alive. But in the maintenance of routine, this reward system is no longer as activated. You enter emotional maintenance mode. And in this mode, many relationships start to die, silently from within. But there's a way, a crack of light in the middle of it all. Reconfigure your gaze. Make the conscious effort to see the other person as if it were the first time. Not in a forced way, but in a way that interrupts autopilot. Asking yourself, what have I stopped seeing in this person because I'm trapped in my own emotional predictability? Is it easy? No, but it's possible, and often just this small adjustment in perception is enough to break the cycle of indifference, to bring back a little presence, a little truth, a little life into this relationship that maybe still has so much left to teach you. The Jungian shadow in everyday life, when what bothers you most in the other is a reflection of yourself. There comes a moment when the problem is no longer the other person, but the mirror they've become. When everything they do seems wrong, seems irritating, seems unbearable. But if you take a deep breath and look with brutal honesty, you'll realize what bothers you most is often what you've been trying to hide from yourself. Carl Jung called this the shadow, those parts of us that we reject, that we deny, that we bury in the darkest corners of the mind out of fear of facing them. And what does life do? It places right in front of us someone who will trigger those wounds, someone who will reflect those very parts we've spent years avoiding. Daily coexistence makes this cruelly clear. Small behaviors from the other act like invisible triggers. Excessive control, emotional neediness, impulsivity, rigidity. Each detail is an unconscious reminder of something you also carry but refuse to admit. It's easy to point fingers, to say the other is immature, that they're cold, that they're selfish. But what if part of that judgment is just fear? Fear of seeing that you too are all of those things in some way. This is one of the biggest emotional traps in an intimate relationship. We project, then reject, then attack. And deep down, what we're really trying to avoid is the confrontation with our own shadow. There are countless, painfully similar examples. You get irritated by how they avoid deep conversations, but maybe you're also running from your own emotions. You hate how explosive they are, but maybe you've been repressing your own anger for months. What irritates you reveals you. And the hardest part is accepting that the other person, unknowingly, is offering you an opportunity for growth, a real chance for self-awareness, a possibility to see yourself with more clarity and fewer masks. But it takes courage to make this inner shift, courage to stop fighting